Important lessons I've learned in life is the ability to not attach story to everything. We're really built to attach story to things. And what we do in that is we keep ourselves locked into one frame. When I was about a year ago, I was going through a very deep depressive cycle. And I think what would have been ordinary, it was ordinary for me at the time, was that I started identifying myself as a depressed person. And I started realizing that depression didn't define me. It was just simply something that I was experiencing, and that all feelings are valid in the moment. And I really learned this through my Tantra training. And that is to, number one, not find preference in certain things, but to simply accept things as they are. Because when we find preference in things, we're inevitably going to be disappointed. We're inevitably going to think that things should be different. And according to the Buddhist traditions, the definition of suffering is to take a pain point and believe that that pain point should be something different. And when you think that a pain point should be different, it means that you are finding some kind of judgment, perhaps of yourself, perhaps of someone else, perhaps even just of the situation. And so you're taking something that's painful, and now you're creating an extended experience of suffering from it. We're taught in Buddhist thinking that pain is inevitable, but suffering is absolutely a choice. And that's what suffering is. Suffering is when you attach a story to something, and that story somehow says that what's happening is wrong. What's happening should be different. And that's very natural. There's some really hard things in life that we all go through. And none of us want to really experience that. And I think most of us don't want anybody else to experience it either. So it's interesting that we can even suffer through other people's pain. And the problem in that is that when we put ourselves in these extended periods of suffering, not necessarily of feeling pain, but just suffering in the experience of pain, whether or not it's even our experience of pain, we put ourselves, from an extended period of time, we put ourselves in a very low place, a very disempowered place. And I think it can be very empowering to feel empathy for others and feel empathy for others' pain. I forget the scientific term for it, but we have a very natural response to where when we see someone else in pain, we feel it ourselves as like part of our brain gets activated and we experience it as well. And I think that's what makes us human. I think that's what makes us able to actually exist in a society together. Because in fact, an archaeologist was once asked, what was the first sign of intelligence in life? And they were asked, was it communication, or was it, tool building, or what was to you the first sign of true intelligence in a society? And the answer was that they had discovered a body where obviously they'd had a broken limb, and someone had taken the effort to try to fix that. And so when a part of a society felt empathy for someone else, a singular other person, and did everything they could to make their pain and their suffering less, that's when they felt like true community, true intelligence, and true humanity began. And so, number one, that's very important, but it's also important not to fall into the trap of staying in a suffering space so that we just keep continuing that same pattern of pain over time. Because, Eckhart totally talks about the pain body. And that's something where we can live in that place and always just experience the pain body. Just experiencing the pain body. You make very different choices from that psyche, from that perspective, than you do from a fully empowered painter body. You make choices more out of fear and survival rather than out of thriving. And so you take away a lot of the higher functioning ideas and cognitive abilities that you have when you work in your pain body and not in your higher mind. You might, for instance, do financial things that don't necessarily serve you. You might say or do things to other people that are not necessarily mindful or helpful or kind. You may assume that people are saying one thing when they're actually saying something completely different because you're interpreting it with your pain body. You're interpreting it from your point of suffering and not from your other idea. And perhaps you're not able to give grace to other people because perhaps even people do mean it bad. But you can allow people grace and understand that people are not always at their highest functioning either. So I guess at the end of the day, it's really important to look at what stories are we telling? What stories are we telling ourselves? What stories are we telling each other? And are we buying into that? And can we even change the story? Number one, do we need a story? And if we do, can we make this story empowering? And really, at the end of the day, can we live somehow without story and just live in this moment right here and see what possibilities awaken from that perspective? I think that's what I'm finding is really helpful for me. Love, peace, release.